Welcome back to my channel, Economics Simplified with Miss Ellen. Today's discussion will be on one of the important and let's say complicated topics in economics, that is elasticity of demand. My channel is created to simplify all your complicated topics. And then with this particular topics, almost every year questions are set on them. Now, to begin with, let's define elasticity of demand. Elasticity of demand is the extent or degree at which demand of a commodity responds to change in the factors such as the price of the commodity, income of the consumer, and the price of other related commodities. Let's break the definition down. We are talking about quantity demanded of a commodity changing. Now, quantity demanded of the commodity is changing or responding to three factors. The first one, that is the price of the commodity itself. Then the second factor is the income of the consumer. And then that of the price of other related commodity, being it substitute or complement. So that is the simplest way of defining elasticity of demand. Quantity demanded, it's responding to a change in the price of the commodity, the income of the consumer, and then the price of other related commodity. So that is elasticity of demand. Now let's talk about the types of elasticity of demand. With the types, we have three main types of elasticity of demand. So this is for your objective sake. The first one, we have price elasticity of demand. Then we have income elasticity of demand. Finally, we have that of the cross elasticity of demand or cross price elasticity of demand. So these are the three types of elasticity of demand. What we are going to do is we are going to take them one after the other and then explain in detail. So we take the first one, that is price elasticity of demand. We are going to define it, know how to calculate it, and then the types and that of the importance of price elasticity of demand. So let's define it. It measures the extent to which quantity demanded of a commodity changes due to changes in the price of the commodity itself. So as the name suggests, that is price elasticity of demand, that is where quantity demanded is changing or responding to only one factor, which happens to be the price of the commodity. So because quantity demanded is changing due to the price of the commodity, that is why it has the name price elasticity of demand. So as I said, the extent to which quantity demanded of a commodity is changing or responding to only one factor, that is what? The changes in the price of the commodity itself. So that is price elasticity of demand. Then we look at the measurement of price elasticity of demand. The measurement is the same as how to calculate the price elasticity of demand. So let's move on. It can be measured using point elasticity formula or the ARC formula. The ARC formula is also known as the midpoint formula. So in other words, we are having two measurements of the price elasticity of demand. The two measurements, as I said, we have the point elasticity formula, and then the second one is the ARC formula or the midpoint formula. Now on my left screen, you can see the formula, that is the point formula. Now the PD or the PED you see here, it's what is known as the price elasticity of demand. So it means that the price elasticity of demand is equal to change in quantity over the change in price times the price over quantity. Now let's expand the variables we have here. The change in quantity, to expand it, we have Q1 minus Q0. Now the one attached to the Q you see here, the one represents the new quantity or the current quantity. Then the zeroed attached to this Q here represent the old quantity or the previous quantity. So to expand the change in quantity, that will be the new quantity or the current quantity minus the old quantity. Then the change in price here is equal to the P1 minus the P0. So the P1 again, it's that of the new price or the current price. Then the 0 attached to the P here refers to the previous or the old price. Then this P you see right here, the P here, it's the old price. Then the Q you see right here is that of the old quantity. So this is the point formula. Then the second formula, which is the ACK formula or the midpoint formula, we have PD or the PED. It's equal to percentage change in quantity over percentage change in price. I'm sorry, with the second, let me make this correction. The second formula you see here is the same as that of the point formula, only that the first formula here, that is the first formula for the point formula. Then the second formula, which is also a point formula, it's the percentage wise. In other words, when you are asked, when the question is given in percentage wise, you use this. That is the second formula. So we have PED is equal to change percentage change in quantity over percentage change in price. Now to expand the variables we have here, the percentage change in quantity is equal to, that is the current quantity minus the old quantity all over the old quantity times 100. That is the expansion form of the percentage change in quantity. Then let's expand that of the percentage change in price, which is the new price minus the old price all over the old price times 100. So the two formulas you see here are all under the points formula. Now let's move to that of the ACK formula. With the ACK formula, that is PED, which is the same as the price elasticity of demand, is equal to change in quantity over the change in price times into brackets, that is the old price plus the new price all over the old quantity plus the new quantity. So that is the ACK formula. Now, sometimes in the WASI exams, a question will be so general, that is, calculate the price elasticity of demand. They wouldn't tell you which formula to use. Now, when it happens this way, you will decide which formula to use, whether to use the ACK formula or the point formula. Unless the question is so specific, that is, using the ACK formula, calculate the price elasticity of demand, that is when you stick to this formula. Or using the point formula, then it means you need to use only the point formula. But then using the two, you'll be arriving at the same answer or similar answer. So that is the measurement of price elasticity of demand. Now let's move to the types of price elasticity of demand. We have types of price elasticity of demand and we have types of elasticity of demand. With the types of elasticity of demand, that is when I said we have three types of elasticity of demand. So let's look at the types of price elasticity of demand. With the type, the first one is the fairly elastic demand. Then we have fairly inelastic demand. Thirdly, we have unitary elastic demand. Then that of the perfectly elastic demand. Now with a perfectly elastic demand, it is also known as completely elastic demand. So it is either perfectly or completely elastic demand. Then finally, we have the perfectly or completely inelastic demand. Now let me show you the simplest way of you memorizing the types of price elasticity of demand. All that you need to know is that with the types of price elasticity of demand, it's either demand, it's that is elastic, or it is inelastic. Now we have demand to be either fairly elastic or fairly inelastic. Then that of demand can also be perfectly elastic or perfectly inelastic. Then the middleman happens to be that of the unitary elastic demand. So as I said, demand is either elastic or it is inelastic. Now we have fairly elastic or fairly inelastic. Then that of the perfectly elastic or perfectly inelastic. Then as I said, the middleman who happens to be unitary elastic demand. So that is how to memorize the types of price elasticity of demand. So it means that we have 5 types of price elasticity of demand. This is for the sake of your objective. They can ask you how many types of price elasticity of demand do we have? We have 5. Then we have 3 types of elasticity of demand. So that is just by the way. Now, if you've watched my video up to this point and then you've still not subscribed, if you are a new subscriber, please subscribe to my channel, Economics Simplified with Miss Ellen. You know what to do. You like, you share, and then if you have any comments, please leave a comment below and then I'll address it for you. Let's continue. Now, we are taking the types of price elasticity of demand one after the other, know how to represent them with a diagram, know how to define them, and then know other things. So the first on the list, we have that of the fairly elastic demand. Let's define what fairly elastic demand is. This is where the proportionate change in quantity demanded is greater than the proportionate change in price. Let me repeat myself. This is where the proportionate change in quantity demanded is greater than the proportionate change in price. That is what the definition for fairly elastic demand. Don't worry, we'll explain further. Then another thing you should know about fairly elastic demand, it's that of the numerical value or the coefficient for a fairly elastic demand. As I have on the screen, that is, it gives a coefficient which is greater than 1, or the numerical value for a fairly elastic demand, it's always greater than 1. So meaning that we have our PED to be greater than 1. This is also very important. Then another thing you should know about fairly elastic demand has to do with the type of commodity. Now we have commodities that have substitute demand. I've explained the types of demand in my previous video. So if you don't know what substitute demand is, kindly visit my previous video and then you understand better. So as I said, all substitute demand or all competitive demands are having fairly elastic demand. So take note of this. Then assuming you are a producer or a seller or a supplier, and then the commodity you are selling, you should know the elasticity of the commodity. That will pre-inform you in terms of how to either increase your price or decrease your price in order to sell more. Now, most of the times, a lot of people don't know the elasticity of the commodity they are selling. So instead of them increasing the price for them to sell more, they are rather reducing the price. Or instead of them reducing the price in order to make more profit, they rather increase the price. So hear me out. If you are a producer or you are a seller or you are a supplier, as I said, the first thing is know the elasticity of the commodity you are selling out. Now, if the commodity you are selling happens to be a fairly elastic demand, then what you should do to your pricing in order to sell more or increase your sales or increase your total revenue or in short, increase your profit is that you should rather reduce the price of your commodity if it happens to be a fairly elastic demand. This is very important for the businessmen, the businesswomen, sellers, producers, etc. So that is what you should know about fairly elastic demand. So it means that we are not only learning economics to go and then write exams pass that or no, but it will help you in your future businesses, etc. Now, having seen all these facts about fairly elastic demand, the next thing is let's look at the graphical representation of fairly elastic demand. Now the graph on your screen, it's the graph representing a fairly elastic demand. Now for you to have a correct diagram, I always tell my students that with the demand curve, as you can see, the demand curve, it's a curve that slopes downward from left to right. The demand curve facing a fairly elastic demand, it's always a gentle slope. Now, let me show you, for the sake of those who haven't done geography, we have the normal demand curve, then we have a gentle slope demand curve, and that of the steep slope demand curve. But then with a fairly elastic demand, it happens to have a that is a gentle slope curve. Now let me take you to my blackboard and then show you how to draw the diagram. So that is all you need to know about fairly elastic demand. Then we take the second type of price elasticity of demand, which is known as fairly inelastic demand. Fairly inelastic demand. So just as we did for fairly elastic demand, we are going to do same for fairly inelastic demand. Now, I always also tell my students that the fairly elastic demand is the direct opposite of that of the fairly inelastic demand. So whatever we said about fairly elastic demand will be the opposite form of the fairly inelastic demand. So let's see how that is true. So we define fairly inelastic demand to be, this is where a greater percentage change in the price will lead to a smaller percentage change in quantity demanded. So you realize that with a fairly elastic demand, we're talking about a small percentage change in price, leading to a greater percentage change in quantity demanded. And then the opposite, that is the fairly inelastic demand, it's rather saying that this is where a greater percentage change in price leads to a smaller percentage change in quantity demanded. That is the definition. Then we look at that of the numerical value or the coefficient. Now, with a fairly elastic demand, the numerical value or the coefficient, it's always less than 1. So we are having the PED to be less than 1. With that of the fairly elastic demand, we had the PED or the numerical value to be greater than 1. The opposite of greater than 1, it's obviously less than 1. So that is the numerical value for fairly inelastic demand. Then we look at the type of good which is having fairly inelastic demand. They are goods, or that is all complementary demand or all joint demand are having fairly inelastic demand. These are all for the sake of your objective. Then lastly, if you are a producer and then you want to increase your profit or increase your total revenue or increase your sale, what should you do with or to the price of the commodity? Now, whatever you are selling, if the elasticity happens to be fairly inelastic, then for you to increase your total revenue or for you to increase your sale, you have to rather increase the price of the commodity. You have to rather increase the price of the commodity. The reason why you should increase the price and not reduce the price in order to sell more is that what you are selling, it has no substitute. That is why we are saying they are what? Complementary demand or they are joint demand. So whether consumers like it or not, they will still buy it. Only that the rate at which they are going to buy will reduce a little bit, but then they are still going to buy it. So if you are a producer who intends to increase your total revenue or increase your profit, what you should do is you rather have to increase the price of the commodity for you to sell more. Then lastly, we look at the graphical representation of the fairly inelastic. So that is the graph on your screen. The graph showing a fairly inelastic demand. Now let me show you how to draw it. Done with a fairly inelastic demand, we move to the type of price elasticity of demand, which is unitary elastic demand. So let's define it. This is where a percentage change in price leads to an equal, so the underlying word here is equal. equal percentage change in quantity demanded. So unitary, we got the word unit from unitary. So this is where a percentage change in price leads to an equal percentage change in quantity demanded. That is the definition for unitary elastic demand. Then the next thing is the numerical value. Now with the unitary elastic demand, their numerical value, it's always equal to 1. So it means that the PED is exactly equal to 1. That is what? Unitary elastic demand. Then we have that of the graphical representation. Now with the unitary elastic demand, the demand curve is the same as the normal demand curve. The normal demand curve. So we have P1, Q1, P2, Q2. Then we have that of the change in price, change in quantity. Now you realize that the change in price is the same as the change in quantity demanded. In other words, if there has been a 50% increase or a 50% change in the price of the commodity, it will lead to the same 50% change in quantity demanded. That is why it has the name unitary elastic demand. Whatever happens to the price of the commodity equally affects that of the quantity demanded of the commodity. If there has been a 50% fall in the price of the commodity, it will lead to what? The same 50% increase in quantity demanded of the commodity. So that is unitary elastic demand. Then we move to the fourth type of price elasticity of demand, which is the perfectly or completely inelastic demand. So let's define it. This is said to be perfectly inelastic when the quantity demanded does not change irrespective of any changes in price. You understand it when I give you the graphical representation. Then we look at the numerical value. With a perfectly inelastic demand, their numerical value is always equal to 0. So it means that PED is equal to 0. Then all necessity goods have perfectly inelastic demand. Necessity goods are goods in which man cannot do away with them. A typical example of a necessity good, we have the water that we drink, we have the salt we use in cooking, we have the air that we breathe. They have no substitute. There is no substitute for the salt we use in cooking. When you are thirsty, there is no substitute for water. There is no substitute for the air that we breathe in. That is what necessity goods. So we are saying that with necessity goods, they are having perfectly or completely inelastic demand. So let's have it in mind. Then if you are a producer who wants to increase your profit or sell more, for you to do that, it means that you have to rather increase the price of your commodity. You have to increase the price because the goods that you are selling, they are what? Necessity goods in which man cannot do away with them. So if you want to sell more, and then in order to make more profit, then what you should do to the price of the commodity is that you need to rather increase the price of the commodity and not what? Reduce the price of the commodity. So this is for our businessmen and women in town. Then we look at the graphical representation of a perfectly inelastic demand. So this is the graphical representation. We have P1, we have P2, and then we have quantity. Now remember we said with a perfectly inelastic demand, this is where at different prices, the same quantities are being consumed. So irrespective of the price changes, the quantities remained unchanged. So if you want to sell more as a producer, you should keep on increasing your price because it is the same quantity that consumers are going to purchase. So you should rather increase the price of the commodity because it is a necessity good. Then lastly, we have that of the perfectly or completely elastic demand. That is the final type of price elasticity of demand. So let's define. A commodity is said to be perfectly inelastic. It's said to be perfectly elastic when at the same price, quantity demanded changes, but when the price changes slightly, none of the commodity will be bought. That is the definition for a perfectly or completely elastic demand. We will use a diagram to explain the definition. Then that of the numerical value, it's always infinity. That is the numerical value. The sign for infinity, so we have PED. This is the sign for infinity. Then if you are a producer wanting to increase your profit or increase your total revenue, what should you do to the price of the commodity? Do not change the price. The price should be left unchanged. The price is fixed. You shouldn't increase the price because the moment you try increasing the price slightly, none of your commodity will be bought. So if you are a producer and then you know that the commodity you are selling, it's having a completely elastic demand, don't do anything to the price. Let the price be fixed. Let the price remain the same. Don't try changing the price. If you want to change the price at all, then it means you are rather reducing the price. But then the moment you try increasing the price, then none of your commodity will be bought. So let's look at our representation. We have it on the board. Sorry, on your screen. So we have fixed price with different quantity. So it means that the perfectly inelastic demand, it's the direct opposite of the perfectly elastic demand. So we have Q1, Q2, and then Q3. At a fixed price, consumers are willing to buy the commodity at different quantities, or different quantities are being bought at the same fixed price. So if you are a producer and then you increase the price slightly, then none of these commodities will be bought. So this is the graphical representation of a perfectly elastic demand. Perfectly elastic demand. I have questions that I want us to solve. Let's solve just one question and then we'll be done with this. Now, the first question is calculate the price elasticity of demand from the graphs below. So we have the first, that is figure A, and then we have that of the figure B. So let's try calculating the price elasticity of demand. Let's try calculating the price elasticity of demand. So with this question, it is a general question. They haven't stated whether you should use the point formula or the arc formula. So let's decide to use the point formula. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to solve one question for you, then you try the other one on your own. So we have the formula that is PED is equal to change in quantity over the change in price times the price over quantity. So our change in quantity, which we said it is Q1 minus Q0. So with this, realize that we are starting from the 0 degree. So let's assume we have an arrow moving upward. Yes. So we have it this way. Now the The initial quantity we have 6, and then the new quantity, the initial price is 6, and then the new price is 10. So it means we are going to have 10 minus 6, which is 4. Then we have change in price, which is P1 minus P0. Yes. Now our P1 will be the 14 minus the P0 will also be 14. Now let's explain why we have 14 here. When the price of the commodity was 6, quantity demanded was 14. When the price increases from 6 to 10, the quantity demanded is the same as the 14. That is how come we have 14 minus 14, which is equal to 0. So it means that our PED will be equal to, we'll have 4 over 0 times the price here. I said it is the old price. So the old price, which is 6 over the quantity, which is the old quantity, which is the same as the 14. Now, any number over 0, we know it is 0. So it means this whole place, it's 0. So 0 times any other number is equal to 0. Therefore, our PED is equal to 0. Now, sometimes after you are being asked to calculate the price elasticity of demand, the next question will be interpret your result. Interpret your result. Now, with the interpretation of the result, you use the final answer you've gotten to do your interpretation. Now, what it means is that since our PED is equal to 0, it means that the elasticity of the commodity, it's perfectly inelastic demand. Why? Because the numerical value for a perfectly inelastic demand is always equal to 0. So that is the essence or the importance of knowing the numerical values of every price elasticity of demand for the sake of your interpretation. So I am done solving the first, that is figure A. So I want you to try your hands on figure B. Now, thanks so much for subscribing to my channel. Thank you for helping my channel. Please, up to this point, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the channel. You like, you share to your other friends to also benefit. Thanks so much and have a great day. Bye.